They don't tell you that getting old is like watching a movie theater empty out during the credits. One by one, people stand up and leave. Some wave goodbye. Some just slip out the side exit. Some you don't even notice are gone until you look around and realize the seat next to you is empty. And you can't remember when that happened. I'm 60 years old, and I've started counting. Not my years, those are easy enough to track. I count the people, the ones still here, the ones who've left. The distance between me and everyone I thought would be around forever. The counting started 3 months ago at my birthday party. My wife Janet threw it at our house. Nothing fancy, just family and a few friends. Cake from Costco. Beer in a cooler on the back deck. About 20 people showed up. I stood in my backyard with a paper plate of potato salad, looking around at faces I'd known for decades, and realized I was doing math. 20 people at my 60th birthday. There were 42 at my 40th. I remember because Janet had made this big deal about it. Rented out the back room at Giordano's, hired a DJ, the whole thing. The room was packed. Cousins I hadn't seen in years, college buddies, neighbors, co-workers, people I'd played softball with, people from our church. The noise level was incredible. Laughter and shouting conversations, and music so loud you had to lean in close to hear anything. This year, you could hear individual conversations clearly. The music was just background noise from Janet's phone speaker. Half the people there were our kids and their families, obligated by blood to show up. The other half were the last holdouts, the survivors, the ones who hadn't died or moved or drifted so far away that sending a birthday card seemed like too much effort. My buddy Frank was there. He's 62, got prostate cancer last year, beat it but looks 20 years older than he did before. We used to play basketball every Saturday morning, back when our knees worked and our backs didn't seize up if we moved wrong. Now we see each other maybe 3 times a year, and we spend most of that time comparing medications and talking about doctors like they're sports teams we follow. My brother Tom drove up from San Diego. 6-hour drive. He stayed for 90 minutes, ate 1 piece of cake, and headed back because he had to work the next day. We used to talk every week when we were younger. Now it's maybe once a month. Those awkward phone calls where you both know you should have more to say but somehow don't. So you fill the silence with weather reports and updates on people you both barely remember. My daughter Emily was there with her husband and 2 kids. She lives 40 minutes away. I see her maybe once every 6 weeks. My son Marcus lives in Boston. He called on FaceTime, held the phone up so his 3-year-old could sing happy birthday to me, then said he had to go. The babysitter was waiting. He hasn't been home for Christmas in 2 years. 20 people. 42 at my 40th. 80-something at my 30th. Though that was mostly Janet's friends, and I spent half the night wondering who half these people were. The numbers tell a story, and it's not a happy one. I've started going through my phone contacts lately, just scrolling through the names, seeing who's still there and who's become a ghost. I've got 417 contacts in my phone. Want to know how many I've actually talked to in the last year? 23. The rest of those names are relics, digital tombstones. People I used to know, used to matter to, used to see every week or every month, or at least every year. Now they're just names with phone numbers that might not even work anymore, attached to people living lives I know nothing about. Mike Peterson, we worked together for 15 years. Best man at his wedding. Godfather to his oldest kid. We used to get beers every Thursday after work, talk about sports and complain about our bosses, and make plans for fishing trips we'd never actually take. Then I switched companies. He stayed. We said we'd stay in touch. We didn't. I couldn't tell you where Mike lives now, or what he's doing, or if he's even still alive. We're friends on Facebook, which means occasionally I see a photo of him at his granddaughter's recital or on vacation in Florida, and I think about commenting or reaching out. I never do. Neither does he. We're ghosts to each other now, haunting each other's feeds without ever actually connecting. Danny Reeves, my best friend from high school. We were inseparable from ages 14 to 18. Spent every weekend together. Knew each other's families better than our own. Made all those dramatic teenage promises about being friends forever. We were groomsmen at each other's weddings. Our kids played together when they were little. I haven't talked to Danny in 8 years. Not because of a fight. Not because of any dramatic falling out. We just stopped. Stopped calling. Stopped texting. Stopped making plans we'd cancel. One day I realized it had been 6 months since we'd talked. Then a year. Then 5 years, and by that point, the gap was so big that reaching across it felt impossible. What would I even say? Hey, sorry I haven't called in 8 years. Want to grab coffee? It feels absurd. So I don't call, and he doesn't call, and we both just accept that whatever we were to each other belongs to the past now. The list goes on. College roommates, softball league buddies, neighbors from 3 houses ago, Janet's friend's husband, who I actually really liked hanging out with. But then the wives had some falling out I never fully understood, and suddenly we couldn't see each other anymore. People who were in my life every single day, then every week, then every month, then just gone. And here's the thing that keeps me up at night. I'm not even sure when most of them left. It's not like death, where there's a moment, the funeral, the clear before and after. It's this slow fade. So gradual, you don't notice it happening, until one day you look around and realize you're surrounded by empty space where people used to be. My father died when I was 47. Heart attack, completely unexpected. He was 69 years old, same as my mom is now. I remember going through his phone after the funeral, trying to figure out who to call, who to notify. He had maybe 30 contacts. 30. And most of those were doctors, service providers, automated appointment reminders. I remember thinking it was sad that he'd let all his friendships atrophy, that he'd ended up isolated and alone despite being married and having kids and grandkids. Now I look at my 417 contacts and realize I'm heading in the exact same direction. The numbers don't matter, the connections do. And my connections are dying off one by one through death or distance or just the slow erosion of time and effort. My mom is still alive, 71 years old, living in the same house I grew up in, spending most of her days watching TV and doing crossword puzzles. I call her twice a week, visit once a month. It's not enough. I know it's not enough. But I also don't know what else to do. She tells me about her days sometimes, and they're all exactly the same. She wakes up, makes coffee, does the crossword puzzle from the newspaper she still subscribes to because she doesn't trust digital news. She waters her plants. She watches her shows, Jeopardy, Wheel of Fortune, whatever mystery series is on PBS that night. She makes herself dinner, usually something small, because cooking for one person is depressing. She goes to bed. Twice a week, she goes to the grocery store. Once a week, she goes to church. Once a month, she has lunch with her friend Barbara, who is 83 and mostly talks about her various ailments. That's it. That's her whole life now. This woman who used to host bridge clubs and volunteer at the library and take my brother and me on adventures every weekend. This woman who knew everyone in the neighborhood and threw legendary Christmas parties and always had a house full of people. Now she spends most of her time alone, waiting for her twice-weekly phone calls from me and her once-a-month calls from Tom. Her friends are mostly dead or in nursing homes. Her siblings are gone. My father is gone. Her world has contracted to the size of a small suburban house and a grocery store route and Sunday morning at St. Catherine's. I used to think she was depressed. Now I wonder if she's just realistic. This is what happens when you get old. Your world gets smaller. The people leave. And eventually you're left alone with your routines and your memories, and the crushing awareness that the life you're living now bears no resemblance to the life you expected to have at 71. I see it happening to me already, and I'm only 60. My work used to be the center of my social life. I'm a civil engineer, spent 35 years working for the same firm, designing bridges and highway systems and infrastructure projects that'll outlast me by a century. I had a whole community there. Guys I'd grab lunch with every day, office parties, company softball team, fantasy football leagues, secret Santa exchanges, happy hours that turned into late nights, that turned into friendships that felt permanent. I retired last year, took the package, got the gold watch. Well, a plaque. Nobody actually gives gold watches anymore. Listened to speeches about my contributions and my legacy. There was a party. People said they'd miss me, that we'd stay in touch, that I should come back and visit. I went back once, about 3 months after I left. Dropped by on a Tuesday afternoon, thought I'd surprise everyone, maybe grab lunch with some of the guys. The office felt different, smaller somehow. There were new people I didn't know sitting at desks that used to belong to friends who'd retired before me. The guys I did know seemed happy to see me, but also slightly uncomfortable, like I was a ghost from the past they'd already moved on from. We made small talk for 15 minutes. I asked about projects I'd worked on, and they told me those projects were done or had been handed off to someone else. I told them I was adjusting to retirement, and they nodded and said that was great. Nobody suggested lunch. Nobody asked for my phone number, even though it hadn't changed. I left after 20 minutes and haven't been back since. Nobody from the office has called me. Nobody has texted. It's like I was never there. 35 years of showing up every day, of building relationships I thought mattered. And within 3 months, it's like I never existed. I don't blame them. I really don't. That's just how it works. When you're not there every day, you stop being part of the story. Life moves on without you. People have new colleagues to have lunch with, new dramas to navigate, new projects to focus on. You become the old-timer they vaguely remember, the guy who retired. What was his name again? The weekdays are the hardest. I used to have somewhere to be, a purpose, a routine, alarms and meetings and deadlines. Now I wake up and the day stretches ahead of me like an empty highway. I could do anything, go anywhere. The freedom is supposed to be the reward for 40 years of work. Instead, it just feels lonely. Janet still works. She's a nurse, won't retire until she's 65. She leaves at 6:30 in the morning and doesn't get home until after 7 at night. So I'm alone in the house from dawn until dinner, trying to figure out what to do with myself. I've taken up woodworking. I go to the gym, though I hate the gym, and mostly just walk on the treadmill while watching CNN on the mounted TVs. I read library books. I run errands that don't really need to be run just to have something to do. Some days I drive around for hours, no destination in mind, just moving because being in motion feels better than sitting in an empty house. I'll pass places I used to go. The bar where the softball team celebrated wins, the diner where I'd meet Mike for breakfast before work, the park where I'd take Emily and Marcus when they were kids. All these places full of ghosts of people I used to be and people I used to know. I thought retirement would be freedom. Instead, it's just shown me how much of my identity was tied to work and how few real friendships I have outside of it. Emily lives 40 minutes away. I said that already. 40 minutes, less than an hour. And I see her every 6 weeks if I'm lucky. She's busy. I get it. She's got 2 kids, my grandkids, Aiden and Sophie, 6 and 4 years old. She's got a full-time job as a pharmacist. She's got a husband who travels for work half the month. She's got school pickups and soccer practices and birthday parties and homework battles and all the chaos that comes with raising young kids. When I was raising Emily and Marcus, I was busy too. Too busy to call my parents as often as I should have. Too busy to visit, always promising we'd come by soon, next month, after things calmed down. Things never calmed down. Now I'm on the other side of it, and I finally understand what that felt like for my parents. The waiting, the hoping, the checking your phone for texts that don't come, the making plans that get canceled at the last minute because something came up with the kids. Emily calls me maybe twice a month. The conversations last about 10 minutes. She's usually driving between errands, and I can hear the kids fighting in the background, or Aiden demanding something, or Sophie crying about some injustice only a 4-year-old can perceive. Emily sounds exhausted. She asks how I'm doing in that distracted way where you can tell she's not really listening to the answer. I tell her I'm fine. She says that's good, says she's sorry but she has to go. Promises we'll get together soon. Soon turns into 6 weeks, then 8 weeks, then 10 weeks, until I finally text and suggest a specific date for dinner, and she either agrees or says that weekend doesn't work, but maybe the next one, which gets pushed again. And suddenly it's been 3 months since I've seen my grandchildren. Marcus is worse. Boston is far, a 6-hour flight, time zone difference, expensive to visit. He moved there for a job opportunity 8 years ago, right after graduate school. Met his wife Keisha there, had their daughter there, built a whole life there that doesn't include us. He calls on holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving, my birthday, Father's Day. The conversations are pleasant but hollow. He tells me about his job, something in tech I don't fully understand. He tells me about Lily, his daughter, my granddaughter, who I've met exactly 4 times, who calls me Grandpa Walter in this formal way that makes it clear I'm a stranger to her. I've invited them to visit many times. The guest room is always ready. I've offered to fly them out, to pay for everything. Marcus always has a reason why it won't work. Too busy at work. Lily has school. The flights are too hard with a toddler, then with a preschooler, now with a kindergartner who can't miss too much school. I've offered to fly out there. Marcus says that's not necessary. They'll come visit soon. Soon never comes. Last year, Janet and I flew to Boston for Lily's 5th birthday. We gave 2 weeks' notice, booked a hotel, brought presents. We stayed for 3 days. Saw Marcus and his family for a total of maybe 8 hours. The birthday party, a quick dinner the night before, and brunch the morning we left. The birthday party was at a trampoline place, packed with screaming kids and other parents we didn't know. Lily opened her presents in a frenzy, barely looking at what was inside before moving to the next one. When she opened ours, an expensive dollhouse we'd spent an hour picking out, she said, "Oh, thanks," and moved on to the next gift. Marcus was on his phone half the time. Keisha was polite but distant, focused on managing the chaos. At dinner, I tried to have a real conversation with my son, asked him about his life, his job, his plans. He gave me surface-level answers, the kind you'd give an acquaintance. When I tried to go deeper, asked if he was happy, if Boston still felt like the right place, if he ever missed California, he looked uncomfortable and changed the subject. At brunch, I asked when they might come visit us. "Soon, Dad. Things are just crazy right now. Maybe this summer." It's been a year. They didn't come this summer. They probably won't come next summer either. I have a granddaughter on the East Coast who barely knows me. A grandson and granddaughter 40 minutes away who I see every 2 months, if I'm lucky. These kids who share my blood, who I'm supposed to have this magical grandparent relationship with, who I'm supposed to take to parks and spoil with ice cream and tell stories about their parents when they were young. Instead, I'm a man they see occasionally, who gives them gifts at Christmas, who exists at the periphery of their lives, while other people, their other grandparents, their parents' friends, their teachers and coaches, fill the space I thought would naturally be mine. Janet feels it too, though she talks about it less. She'll scroll through Facebook and see photos Emily posted of the kids at the zoo or at a birthday party, and she'll get quiet. Sometimes she'll say something like, "That looks fun. I wish we'd been there." Sometimes she just closes her phone and doesn't say anything at all. We used to talk about retirement as this time when we'd finally get to be the fun grandparents. We'd have time and energy and freedom. We'd take the grandkids to Disneyland, have them over for weekend sleepovers, be the ones they called when they needed advice or just wanted to hang out. Instead, we're just waiting for visits that don't happen, waiting for phone calls that come less frequently, waiting for our kids to need us, when increasingly it's clear that they don't. People die in clusters, I've noticed. Not literally clusters, but it feels that way. You go years without anyone you know dying, and then suddenly, it's one funeral after another. My father died 13 years ago. That was the first one that really hit me. The first death of someone I saw regularly. Someone whose absence changed my daily life. Then there was a long stretch where nobody died, or at least nobody close enough that I had to go to the funeral. Then, 5 years ago, it started. Janet's mother, my Uncle Robert, a guy from work who had a stroke at 58. Frank's wife, Danny Reeves' brother. Janet's childhood best friend, my cousin Linda, another guy from work. Frank himself had a close call with cancer. Tom's wife had a heart attack. She survived, but hasn't been the same since. Every funeral feels the same now. The same church or a different church that looks just like all the other churches. The same ritual of standing in line to view the body, which I hate but do anyway, because that's what you're supposed to do. The same awkward conversations with people you haven't seen in years, comparing notes on health problems and grown children and retirement plans. The same awareness that you're all in the same boat now, all heading toward the same destination, just at different speeds. At my Uncle Robert's funeral, I looked around the church and realized something that made my chest hurt. This was probably the last time I'd see most of these people. My extended family, people I'd grown up with, at Thanksgiving dinners and Christmas parties and summer barbecues. We were all getting old, all busy with our own lives, all living in different cities, different states, different worlds. The only thing that brought us together anymore was death. And even that was starting to feel optional. I'd heard through my mom that some cousins hadn't come to Robert's funeral because they were busy or couldn't afford the flight or just didn't feel close enough to him to make the effort. We used to be a family. Now we're just strangers who happen to share DNA, who gather occasionally to bury the people who used to hold us together. My address book is filled with dead people. I keep meaning to go through it, cross out the names of people who are gone, but I can't bring myself to do it. It feels too final, too much like erasing them completely. So their names stay, reminding me every time I flip through looking for a phone number that the world I knew is disappearing person by person, death by death. Sometimes I dream about the past. Not normal dreams, but these vivid, detailed recreations of moments I'd completely forgotten about. Me and Tom as kids, building a fort in the woods behind our house, playing basketball with Frank and Mike and a bunch of other guys whose names I can barely remember. Emily's 8th birthday party in the backyard. Marcus learning to ride a bike. Dinner parties with Janet and other couples. Back when we used to have dinner parties. Back when we had couple friends. I wake up from these dreams and I feel Janet is the one constant. 38 years of marriage. She's been there through all of it. The births and deaths, the job changes and moves, the slow drift of everyone else away from us. We're partners in this weird, lonely stage of life where your kids don't need you anymore, and your friends have their own problems, and the days just sort of blend together into an endless routine. But even with Janet, I sometimes feel the distance. We live in the same house, sleep in the same bed, eat dinner together every night. But we've grown so used to each other that whole days can pass where we barely really talk. We discuss logistics. What's for dinner? When the plumber is coming? Did you remember to pay the electric bill? We watch TV together in silence. We exist in parallel, together but separate. Sometimes I look at her and I miss her, even though she's right there. I miss who we used to be, the young couple who stayed up all night talking about our dreams, the new parents who were exhausted but excited, the middle-aged couple who still had date nights and inside jokes and this sense that we were a team navigating life together. Now we're just old. Two 60-year-olds going through the motions, waiting for the next thing to happen. A visit from the kids, a health crisis, retirement, death. We love each other, I know we do. But sometimes love at 60 feels more like a habit than a feeling, more like loyalty than passion. I asked her last week if she was happy. We were sitting on the back deck, drinking our evening glass of wine, watching the sunset. She looked surprised by the question. What do you mean? I mean, are you happy? With your life? With us? With how things turned out? She thought about it for a long time, long enough that I started to regret asking. I don't think happy is the right word, she finally said. I'm content, I guess. Things are fine. We're healthy. We have enough money. The kids are doing okay. I'm not unhappy. Not unhappy. That's what we've become. Two people who aren't unhappy, living in a house that's too big for us, waiting for our kids to visit and our grandkids to need us and our friends to not die. This is the future nobody warns you about. Everyone talks about retirement like it's this golden period. Freedom and relaxation and finally getting to do all the things you never had time for. They don't talk about how it's also loss and loneliness and a creeping awareness that the best parts of your life are behind you. They don't talk about how you can be surrounded by people at your 60th birthday party and still feel completely alone. I went to the grocery store yesterday. Spent an hour there, even though I only needed milk and bread. Took my time walking the aisles, reading labels, comparing prices I didn't need to compare because we have plenty of money. Just trying to fill the time. Just trying to be around other people, even if they're strangers. At the checkout, the cashier was maybe 20 years old. She scanned my items without looking at me, her fingers flying across the register while she chatted with the bagger about some party this weekend. They were making plans, excitedly listing all the people who'd be there, debating what time to show up and what to wear. I thought about what it's like to be 20 and have a party to go to have friends you see every week, to have your whole life ahead of you, full of possibilities and people and moments that haven't happened yet. To not yet understand that this doesn't last, that the party eventually ends, that the people drift away one by one until you're 60 and alone in a grocery store, buying milk you don't really need just to have somewhere to be. The cashier finally looked at me when she told me the total. Our eyes met for half a second. She smiled, the professional smile you give customers, and then looked away. I wanted to tell her something, to warn her maybe, to say, call your friends. See them as often as you can. Don't take them for granted. Don't assume they'll always be there. Don't get so busy with work and family that you forget to maintain the relationships that make life worth living. Don't wake up at 60 and realize everyone has drifted away. I didn't say anything, just paid and left. She wouldn't have understood anyway. Nobody understands until they're living it. I've started going to church again. Not because I've suddenly gotten religious. I'm still not sure what I believe about God or heaven or any of it. But the church is full of old people like me, people whose kids have moved away, and whose friends have died, and who need somewhere to go on Sunday morning. Some sense of community and purpose and connection. We sit in the same pews every week, sing the same hymns, listen to Father Michael give sermons about love and loss, and last Sunday, I sat next to a man named George. He's 74, a widower, lives alone in an apartment downtown. We got to talking after the service. He told me about his son who lives in Seattle and calls once a month. His daughter, who lives locally, but is always too busy to visit. His wife who died 3 years ago, who was his best friend for 52 years, whose absence still feels impossible to comprehend. The hardest part, George said, stirring sugar into his coffee, isn't being alone. It's realizing that everyone else has moved on with their lives, and you're just here, still existing, but not really part of anyone's story anymore. I knew exactly what he meant. That's the thing about getting old that nobody prepares you for. It's not the physical deterioration, the bad knees and the failing eyes and the way it takes longer to recover from everything. It's not even death itself, which at least has the mercy of being final. It's the slow erasure, the gradual realization that you've become peripheral to everyone's life, that the people you love are busy living their lives, and you're just watching from the sidelines, hoping for phone calls, waiting for visits, counting the people who are left, and watching that number shrink year after year. It's being 60 years old with 417 contacts in your phone and 23 people you actually talk to. It's having 2 children and 3 grandchildren and still feeling lonely most days. It's going to your birthday party and doing math, counting heads, realizing that the circle of people who show up for you is getting smaller and smaller. It's understanding, finally, what your mother's life looks like and knowing you're headed in the same direction. It's watching the movie theater empty out, one person at a time, and wondering how much longer before you're sitting in the dark, completely alone. Growing old isn't hard. The body slows down, the mind adjusts, the routine becomes familiar. You learn to live with less energy, less ambition, less certainty about what comes next. But watching everyone drift away, that's the part that breaks you. Slowly, quietly, one goodbye at a time. I'm 60 years old. I'm not ready to be alone. But I'm starting to understand that ready or not, it's happening. It's been happening for years. I just wasn't paying attention. Now I am. Now I see it clearly. The empty seats around me. The phone that doesn't ring. The grandkids who barely know me. The friends who've become ghosts. The future that looks like my mother's present. Small and quiet and full of memories instead of moments. I'm 60 years old, and I'm drifting away too. From my kids, from my friends, from the life I thought I'd have. Drifting towards something I can't quite see, but can feel approaching. Something that looks like Sunday mornings at church with other old people I barely know. Something that looks like hours at the grocery store just to have somewhere to go. Something that looks like my mother's crossword puzzles and TV shows, and that terrible, crushing loneliness. They don't tell you that getting old is like watching a movie theater empty out, but it is. And I'm one of the last ones left, sitting in the dark, waiting for the credits to finally roll.